Good evening, everyone. Oh, the microphone is on. My name is Michael Barsanti, and I'm the Edwin Wolf II Director of the Library Company of Philadelphia. We are going to get going with our program in just a moment. Before we do, let me give you the obligatory request that you silence your phones. I always need a reminder. You might as well. I also want to thank you all for coming here tonight and thank those of you who are tuning in remotely for coming here for this program. If you're not here in person and are tuning in, you're missing out on a beautiful fall evening here in Philadelphia. And while I'm sure the camera will catch it, the light coming in tonight is especially spectacular. So we have a really wonderful evening. I'm tempted to not use the microphone, but then I know it won't come up. Trying to see. All right. We have a few more people coming in. And, but I think it's time to begin. So I am thrilled to welcome all of you to this special concert performance by the Library Company's 2022, or one of the Library Company's 2022 Francis Johnson Innovation Fellows, the trombonist Brent White, and the wonderful band he has gathered with us today. Brent is a lifelong Philadelphian and very much part of the life of this city. He is not only a performer and a composer, he's also an educator. He's on the music faculty of Drexel University. And he has worked with many local organizations to bring jazz music into people's lives through teaching and outreach. Thank you, Brent, for being here today, and thank you for being our fellow. It is especially fitting that we are gathered here at Mother Bethel to listen to Brent and his band bring new life to the work of Frank Johnson. We are so grateful to our friends at Mother Bethel for hosting us tonight. It is a real privilege to be here and an honor, and it is the right place at the right time. We're very grateful. Mother Bethel is, of course, a foundational site in Philadelphia history and in African American history. It was established in the early 1790s at about the same time Frank Johnson was born. And Johnson ultimately lived just a few steps from here. You can see a historic marker at the site of his home, just around the corner at 6th and Pine. I'm also compelled to say that my predecessor as director of the Library Company, Professor Rich Newman, is here tonight. Professor Newman is an expert on Richard Allen and on the history of the African American community in Philadelphia. I feel especially honored that Rich is able to join us, since so much of his work and his precedent at the Library Company is part of what brings us here as well. Many of you are already friends of the Library Company or a part of our group of members and shareholders, but some of you may be unfamiliar with us. The Library Company is one of the oldest institutions in Philadelphia. It is, we like to say, the first public library, the first lending library. And when you hear that Ben Franklin invented libraries, what they're talking about is the Library Company of Philadelphia and the membership form of libraries that followed it. We got our start in 1731 and are older than the nation itself. I was just writing to someone today where we were founded before George Washington was even born. But Ben Franklin and a group of friends got together and they decided that they needed a library to help improve themselves and improve their community. When they looked around and thought, what would be a tool that we could use to improve Philadelphia and also to improve our lives and our businesses, they thought, let's get together, contribute some money together, and start a cooperative library. And this library has been in continuous existence ever since. Our mission as the first public library in the country was to put books in the hands of ordinary citizens. Our shareholders and members were those that wanted to educate themselves and others and improve society through education and discuss the issues of the day. We continue today as a research library and cultural institution that makes rare and unique collection materials available to anyone who is interested in excavating and interpreting our country's past and in learning together. one of the areas of particular focus and depth in our collection is early African American history. And that collection dates back to some of the earliest days of the library company, when some members of the board and members of the company were very active in promoting abolition, early members of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society. And today we have a program in African American history that has its own fellowships, that has its own director, its own staff. It is an endowed institution within the library company, and an important part of the research that we sponsor. So the library company happens to be a repository of the most substantive surviving manuscript left by Francis Johnson. It's a volume that's full of marches and dance tunes, the kind of music for which Johnson was widely celebrated in his day. It came to us in a somewhat peculiar way. It came to us through the collection of James and Phoebe Rush. James and Phoebe Rush. James Rush was one of the sons of Benjamin Rush. He was a great patron of the library, and after his death, his papers and most of his fortune came to the library company in the 1860s, and among those was this manuscript volume. This year, we thought that we would award an innovation fellowship to a team of a scholar and a musician to help us interpret this manuscript and bring it to life. We invited them to Philadelphia to spend time with the manuscript, of course, for Brent. That wasn't too hard. He's already here. But they spent time with us and with each other and with the manuscript and developed innovative responses to it. This concert from Brent White and his band is one of the products of that research. The other fellow is Dr. Uchenna Ongwe, who spent time with us in April. Dr. Ongwe is not with us tonight. She is home in London, where I believe she's streaming, watching the concert on live stream. If you are, Uchenna, hello. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Uchenna is an oboist and a scholar, and she's developed a website that shares hidden stories of historical Black classical musicians in Europe. She will be adding a module to her site about Johnson's work with a focus on his 1837 European tour. We look forward to sharing more about Uchenna's fellowship project very soon. I will turn things over to Brent in a moment, but I want to take a moment to thank the many people who made tonight's event impossible, especially our friends at Mother Bethel, but also my colleagues at the library company, Rachel Hammer, Christine Nelson, Jasmine Smith, Sarah Weatherwax, Fran Dolan, Blanche Brown, Allison Kronstadt, and Katie Maxwell. I also want to thank, in absentia, Will Fenton, who, as a former employee of the library company, who came up with the idea for this innovation fellowship. I hope Will is tuning in from California as well. I want to thank the sponsors of the fellowship as well, including Professor Randall Miller, Louise and Peter Kelly, John and Christine Van Horn, and an anonymous supporter. We're also grateful to Drexel University's Antoinette Westphal College of Media Arts and Design and Black Music City, which have provided additional support for Brent's work on Francis Johnson. Now, please join me in welcoming Brent White.
Thank you. This work was inspired by the scholar Eileen Southern, who said something to the likes, there must have been something missing in the transcripts, an infusion of music with rhythms and complexities such are found in Black folk music or 20th century jazz. I hope today to set an environment, a place where we can see what it was like a little over 200 years ago. Philadelphia was regarded as the cultural and intellectual capital of Black America at the time, when 85% of Blacks were enslaved. Here in Philadelphia, the Black population would grow 10% by 1920, and its very democracy was very challenged by the arrival of 3,000 or more refugees from Haiti as Creole slaves. After the Haitian Revolution, you could see Quakers here in Philadelphia with French gentlemen with the latest fashion from the West Indies, riches, and you can hear debates about the Haitian Revolution itself, fueled about what really slavery meant for this young country. This is all while Reverend Allen and Absalom Jones were working to form the independent Black African Church. Essentially, Philadelphia would have had Creoles of color, free blacks, military regiments, commerce, commodities, sugar, similar to New Orleans, except this is 100 years before the birth of jazz in New Orleans. And so this music is meant to showcase that diversity that was in Philadelphia at that time, that diversity that was founded here in Philadelphia of all these different cultures, all these different languages, all these different dialects. So this is meant to show code switching through the rhythm that would have come through Afro-Cuban rhythms, Cuba, Haiti. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail with each different rhythm, but each piece is meant to show a different rhythm. In Martinique, we take French islands, we go Haiti, we go to Cuba, we go to Puerto Rico. And so what the infusion of this is that it's an infusion of classical arrangements of Francis Johnson with all these different rhythms. And so I hope today you enjoy. This will be code switching. So that was Bingham's Cotillion, and that featured the bomba. He was somewhat, I guess we can't say, we like to say people have been found or they've been discovered. But 15-year-old Johnson would have been performing at a place called the Exchange Coffee House. And this is where he met his first publishers that would have been starting to publish his music. These would have featured dances that would have been the French quadrone cotillion, and a number of square dances, which would, be, of course, the forerunner of the American square dance. One of his published, and once all his arrangements were published, bands would make up their own arrangements similar to this. And so it wouldn't be a standard way to write the music, so we took the score in the form that it was, and we made up our own arrangement. And so this is what some of the musicians similar would have been doing. Of course, it would not have been in this style because some of these rhythms were not available at the time. And so that was Bingham's Cotillion. Next, we're going to play, the first is really an intriguing piece called Battle of New Orleans. Johnson was in the 3rd Company of Washington Guards, in which he would have been with George Willock Jr., employed under the direction of Francis Johnson. And this was much of a tribute to the Battle of 1812. This battalion included free black men, and was the 2nd largest ensemble first largest music ensemble defending New Orleans, one of 2 black ensembles. These activities would happen during 1814 and 1815 and would mark the beginning of music making of American Creoles that 100 years later would eventually give birth to the jazz. So it's this very interesting lineage in terms of what the Creoles who came here to Philadelphia and also would have came to New Orleans. And so it's a very interesting tradition. So we're going to begin this with the Battle of New Orleans. How fun was that? And so next we're going to feature two pieces because Matt Davis, who was a really, we really worked side by side with a lot of these manuscripts, and our guitarist Matt Davis, and it was really helping to, you know, as a trombone player, you don't play as much harmony as you would like to. And so one of the things that really Matt would really help to sort of, you know, help out was, you know, where are these chord progressions that we're adding to these scores that don't exist? And so a lot of that goes to Matt Davis, and we went to Waverly, and we had the opportunity to sort of demo some of these things. And one thing we did, this is the second piece in the manuscript, is an Adagio. And we found something odd in Adagio, that it was both in D major and D minor at the same time. And so when we performed it, we did it in minor, and one of the you know, the people who had the opportunity to see said, well, why don't you just do it in both? And so we decided to do that. And so the first one we're going to play is we're calling it Adagio and D Major, and then the second one is Adagio and D Minor. Enjoy. So that was major. So now we decided to slow this one down and give it more of a swing feel. And so this would be a swing pattern on this, and this is same piece in a minor. So I need to ask, how many people are minor people in here? You like the minor better? Raise your hand. How many people are major people? It's about 50-50, right? We got to, I should have put an official poll up to see who, what we prefer, what type of mood we're in. So that was the three pieces that we did out of the manuscript, and it's probably the first time these have ever been played public. So it was a really great honor to be able to dig into the manuscripts. Another piece that we found inside the Battle of New Orleans was that we found that Francis Johnson also gave sound effects. And so we found that in the scores it would say horses galloping, and the musicians were expected to make that type of sounds. And so as we get later into it, we're going to make some sound effects, and we're going to make some noise too, and you're going to see that, so we'll get into that. So now we're going to get to Recognition March of the Independence of Haiti. And this is one of the very, very interesting pieces of history in terms of the idea of Haiti and how it influenced us in Philadelphia, how it influenced this country. And one of the things that Francis Johnson had an opportunity to do was to write this for actually the free independent state to return free people, blacks of color, to Haiti. So this march was not so much for the freedom of the Haitian people, it's that because it was believed that Haiti would be the best place for people of color to go to have an independent state. And so obviously this all fell apart. It didn't work out, but this was meant to be to get black people of color, Americans of color, organized through the Haitian Immigration Society of 1824, and Francis wrote this march so that the black population would return to Haiti to have a free independent state. So that's what this march is for. All right, we're going to play the recognition march of the independence of Haiti. At this time, we have really two special guests, and at this time, this is just one of these pieces that you can't really say much. You just got to experience it. And so, I'm going to bring up Latasha at this time, and we're going to play "The Grave of the Slave." I got all my paper on your stuff. I know.
His true sleep shall we sorrow that death was thy friend, the last and the kindest that heaven could send. The grave of the weary is welcome and bliss. Indeed to the captive is freedom and peace and
I just also want to give a shout out to Matt Davis for that beautiful arrangement. We kind of fought over that one. He said, I said, I want to do that. He said, Matt says, this is my cup of tea. And Matt really, so that's a beautiful arrangement by Matt Davis of The Grave of the Slave. Now, earlier I talked about some of Francis Johnson's innovations, and one of the really big innovations was sound effects. Sound effects, making those feel like we're in environments. And so there was, he would make bird calls, or if it was a siren, well, we can hear that now today when we're driving, by the cars, but sirens are so sound effects. So this is one that's going to be a little bit more avant-garde, in that we're going to hear some flutters, some effects. I'm going to do some weird things on the trombone. He's going to do some weird things on the saxophone. And this is Johnson's New Bird Waltz. So we tried to get some sound effects. I don't know if we could do quite, Francis Johnson, but we tried to get some things in there that you might not have heard these instruments normally do. At this time, I would like to invite my wife out. And so you couldn't do Francis Johnson in a dance concert without having dance. And so, this is Victoria Gallup, and this is in the true sense of a loop, if we had to say it. And so like looping, it's just a very short phrase. And each of us have one fragment of the phrase, and we're going to come in at different times. It starts with the piano, bass, and drums, and then the horns come in at the last with the melody that's actually on the manuscript. So I hope you enjoy it. This is Victoria Gallup. All right, so we come to the final piece of the night, and I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration of the works of Francis Johnson. And the goal was simply to take a little one piece across his lifetime. And so Bingham's Cotillion was the very first piece that was published. We took works from the manuscript at the Library of Company, and we reimagined those. And we finally come to the final piece, and this is actually by I'm going to call him a partner in crime of his. He would have toured Europe with him. At this time, it's now 1847. Francis Johnson passed. And this is at the time where there were musicians in his band trying to continue his legacy. And these were black men trying to continue his legacy. And so Aaron Connor he also helped Johnson arrange works. Victoria Gallup is one that's believed that he had a piece to doing and help him out with that arrangement. And so this final one is, and another note about this piece is that this is one of the rare waltzes in 5. So it's a waltz in 5, and so we really challenged ourselves with this one. And so this is, and if you don't know, people don't dance in 5 too much, even to today. And so we tried to put a new beat that I don't think has ever been played, because we're playing a Latin beat in 5. So I called it a Latin rumba, but Pablo got mad at me and said that doesn't work. So, I had to. But we're going to play this final piece, and hope you enjoy. And if hopefully if you have any questions, I'll be in the back and I'll take any questions that you have anything. Zakai Curtis on piano. Nimrod Speaks on bass. Wayne Smith Jr. on drums. Pablo Batista on percussion. Matt Davis guitar. Todd Bayshore alto sax and flute. Lauren Putty White on dance. Latasha Morris on vocals. And I'm Brent White. Hopefully you enjoyed this set. Have a good night. Coming back up.
That was amazing. I have just a few closing remarks. Before I do, Brent kindly suggested he would take some questions. He may be running and hiding from me now. That's all right. Does any questions? Anyone want to ask Brent?
Yeah, code switching. So code switching is what had to be necessary for him to be performing black and white audiences. And so there were differences, and I was hoping to show it with the music itself, but there were differences. So he would have played in all black congregations in churches like this. At the same day, he would have to go play in for all white audiences. And it would be the same pieces, same numbers. And what he would do was that he would change the rhythm of the pieces, but it would be the same pieces that you found. And so this is a lot of what was discussed in his works, is that in particular was a comment that he would he would distort songs and distort pieces very close to jazz. And so it was much subtle, but it was that he would have to present his music before different people in different ways. And so that's where the title came from, and that's where the code switching came from.
Sir.
Where did he get his musical training?
So it's some schools say, there's two schools with that. Some schools say that he was sort of self-trained, but I do believe that he had opportunities to have lessons and things. And so I believe he got lessons from, there was military bands at the time, so he would have lessons at military bands in particular is where most likely he got started. But most of the scholarship says that they were self-taught, and you see that when it was advertised in the print, they were self-taught musicians. But I believe that he did have some formal training with other musicians. And then he also, when he traveled, he would also gain information from whoever he was around. He would learn from them too.
What part of the country?
He's from Philadelphia, but he traveled all the way to Europe and back. Saratoga Springs, Buffalo. So he would have went out west when there was no west. So he did a lot of touring. Yeah, so it was mainly a mentorship, and so the black community was very tight at the time, and so Francis Johnson would have been well known, and amongst the community, and in particular the black church community, and so at this time, at that time, it would have been it's just a very tight knit community where it would have been friends or fellowships. It's just like how we get along, and so it was a very tight knit African American community. And that's partly of where some of these relationships were built and some of those relationships sustained throughout the years. Yes, absolutely. So as he came back from Europe, he started to be one of the first to bring the promenade contest, the promenades, or the prom versions of, and it was a different style that came from over in Europe. And so he was one of the first, and he would bring all the latest trends in Europe. And so he went there, he did his research, he would bring the latest sounds to Europe, because then we were trying to copy them. And so he brought the latest things, the arrangements, and this is one of the arrangements that he brought to Philadelphia from Europe.
Did he meet Victoria, or did he perform?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. And so, yes, he absolutely, I'm getting some help up here, that, he actually met the Queen. And so this is one of the beautiful things that what he had the opportunity to do. Thank you. Yes.
Brent, if you wouldn't mind just repeating the question.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. So the question is that what do I think Francis Johnson would have thought about this? To be perfectly honest, I think that the innovator that he was, I don't think this is innovative enough. I don't. I think that how he experimented with the key bugle at the time, how he was always on the latest trends in terms of entertainment, how he knew how to dance, he would have had y'all dancing. I couldn't get you guys up. So I think that he had a little bit of advantage. I hope they can hear me. He would have had an advantage, and also I think he would have used technology, available. I think we use acoustic instruments, but I think he would have had a beat maker up here. I think seriously, I think he would have been a lot more innovative than this. This is fairly conservative compared to what Francis Johnson would have done. Yeah. And so when we had the opportunity, so it starts in piano score, and it's just simply piano score is just, it would be basically the melody and a form of three notes under it, and we had to interpret what the chord was. Sometimes the chord didn't make sense harmonically, so Matt Davis, I call Matt Davis. Matt, does this make sense, Matt? So we would work towards reharmonizing it towards harmonies what we're used to hearing, and so it's sort of progression. So that was sort of the process with developing this works. And I guess I'll take two more questions. In the back, please. Yeah, it was, this piece was the most challenging out of all of them. You save it out of last. And I had a very aggressive idea of what I wanted to happen in rehearsal, to say the least. And I wanted the idea of paralleling a rumba in 5/4, because it's a waltz. Imagine a waltz in 5. I wanted to imagine some type of Caribbean dance in 5. And so we tried to do that, but it's just not a natural feel. And so that's what you heard. You heard that little bump with that extra beat. And it's like, okay, you start dancing, you be like, wait a second, and so that was on purpose. That was purposeful with the intent of that we don't waltz in 5 anymore, and we don't dance in 5. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I knew about Francis Johnson through long time. Eileen Southern is a scholar who wrote about him extensively, and I knew through her writings. So I knew about, but I didn't know how innovative he was until I got into actually the manuscript. I got into some of his published works, got into figuring out it's just it's amazing how innovative he really was. And so, Uchenna, I want to give her a big shout out. She said something that was very wise. She said, he gets rediscovered every 20 years and then forgotten. And what I'm saying is that, that we should not forget Francis Johnson. A whole bunch of scholars do a whole bunch of work in the 80s, and it was like, Frank Johnson. Then they forget about him. Then he comes back like he never existed. And this happened numerous times over history. And I think the goal right now is that with the scholarship is not to forget him. To keep him a permanent canon in terms of what the music, and his contributed to American music. So.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Brent, again. We're so grateful to you, Brent, for bringing all of your creativity and passion to this work. And, you get goosebumps a little bit thinking about this music being performed not too far away from where Francis Johnson lived, and the sound sort of reaching there. It's a beautiful, it was just a beautiful performance, and thank you. So the arrangements you've heard tonight are featured on a new album that Brent is or has recorded. It's a long story. We'll get you more information about this. If we have your we'll send up a follow-up email to all of you, and you can contact us, and we can give you more information about the recordings as they become available. We're recording this event already tonight, but actual proper music recording will follow, we hope, soon. If you'd like to see the Johnson manuscript in person, it is on display at the Library Company, which is located at 1314 Locust Street. Admission is free. The doors are open from 9 to 4:45 every day. We also have an exhibition that's currently on display there, a history of mental health in America that I think you'd also enjoy seeing. The manuscript will be on display until October 14th. It's open to the song The Battle of New Orleans, so one of the selections for tonight. The entire manuscript has also been digitized. I hope we'll send you the link to that if you want to take a look at the manuscript digitized online. Finally, a short pitch for those of you who are not Library Company members or shareholders. We would love to have you join us. Join our learning community for programs like this and for also learning so much about early American history. To be a member of the Library Company is to sort of hear the next draft of American history from our fantastic scholars, and to also be able to have contact with our collections and experience more programming like this. The collections, of course, the Library Company is free to anyone who wants to use the collections. I wouldn't imply that, and I hope you'll come and visit us. Please join me in giving a final round of applause to Brent and the band, the vocalist, the dancer. Thank you for coming. Have a great weekend. Thank you.